what's going on, everybody? Drew Hammond inside Pig Trail Nation here with Tara Talmadge. We got Mike Irwin, our senior analyst. We got Alyssa Orange as well. This is the Arkansas Hot Coaching Board. We're going to find out who the heck's going to be the successor, the replacement, that is, to Chad Morris, who was fired this past weekend. Of course, a lot of names being thrown out there. This is the age we live in. People just love throwing whatever they can out there for the most part. And let's begin with, a pretty familiar name, Gus Malzahn. We'll just kind of go down the line here. We'll start with Alyssa. Sure. Gus, obviously, at Auburn, they're 7-2 this season. You look at Gus, he would have to pay Auburn $7 million if he leaves before December 31st. So, that's the thing. You're in a scenario where financially he's making $49 million over a 7-year contract, but obviously we know the strong connections to the state of Arkansas from Gus.
Well, I'm just going to tell you, not a fan. And this is why I feel like after what happened last year or 2 years ago with Brett Bielema getting fired, all that controversy surrounding that might rub some people the wrong way. But then look at Gus Malzahn and at Auburn. And sure, he's winning games. But there's a lot of turmoil inside that program. You hear a lot of guys that transfer out. You hear a lot of guys who don't like Gus. He's always throwing people under the bus. He threw Rhett Lashley under the bus. He fired his brother-in-law. There's a lot of things about the way Gus Malzahn handles his business that I'm not a big fan of. And so I know there are a lot of people that like Gus, but I don't necessarily think it would be a good idea for Arkansas to go back to Gus Malzahn.
Mike, Auburn's Auburn. I mean, they got 7 wins, but in the state of Alabama, it's always, are you going to beat Alabama at the end of the year? So you're always dealing with that, and it just seems like he's just on the brink. He's so much on the brink of always being at the point where he's going to be let go. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, I don't think he's going to quit, so there's not going to be a buyout issue, I don't think. I think the only way he'd leave there, if he thought he was going to be fired, they told him they might negotiate with something. But I know a few people that know him, and what I'm told is if he came to Arkansas, it's his third choice maybe. Hunter Yurachek doesn't work that way. He wants somebody that specifically wants to be here. That's how he hired Eric Musselman. When I stood there, he told me to my face that there were some qualified candidates for that basketball job. Ask him about Beard, because that was the hot topic. They were going to the national championship game. And he said, even if he won the national championship, if he would come here, why would I want him? Because I wouldn't want somebody that would leave the school that they got that far with. I want somebody that wants to be here. So all you need to know about Gus wanting to be here is what happened the last time when they supposedly negotiated through his agent. So I don't think anybody that he's going to be hired if Arkansas is the third choice. Then there's all this stuff that came up in 2006, 2007, all that controversy. You got people that are on his side, you got people that are on Nutt's side, but you know what? You mostly have people like me that hated the whole thing. Just neither side don't like it. And I don't know that he can undo the damage of that. That's why when I hear people talk about Nutt coming back, it's the same thing. You got people that are mad about all that stuff, and I will tell you, in all the years that I've covered this program, that 2-year period, as bad as it is right now, they were winning back then. For me personally, it was horrible because you were trying to follow a story with rumors and people telling stuff, and this friend says this, and this guy. I told somebody, it was like being in the 6th grade again, walking into the 6th grade bathroom where everybody's gossiping about everybody. I hated it.
There's so much to this because big picture, we know Gus can coach offense. There's no question about that. You talk about the fire alarm sets. There's a lot of examples you can point to, but there's always kind of like, what's on the horizon? Are they going to be as good defensively next season as they are this season? Obviously, the defensive line is really strong this season. People are always thinking about that, talking about it, and are there certain boosters out there that want to get rid of them? And that's the thing, Terry. You kind of look at this. It's big picture also of what's this guy going to be when he comes in? Obviously, he's got the Arkansas ties, but I look at, how you handle the media as well. I mean, there's all kinds of factors.
I think Mike pretty much summed it up for everyone. I wasn't really a big fan of how things went down 2 years ago. I don't think that even if he is, let go from Auburn right now because fans are not happy, I don't really see him coming here, despite all of his connections. And I'm also looking at your Facebook comments right now. No one else really wants him here either, is what I'm seeing. A lot of people are not too high on the Gus Malzahn
bus.
Yeah, exactly.
No
the Gus bus.
Yeah.
No one's really on that right now.
We're going to talk about 5 hot names here. We'll get to the second one right now, and then we're going to go through some other names. We're also going to take your comments throughout this Facebook Live as we basically just kind of go through it in terms of, who really is legitimately on the short list. And again, we may be too early to really know that. Obviously, Arkansas has 3 weeks left in football season, 2 games left, going to LSU a week from Saturday. Mike Leach is coach number 2 we will talk about as far as a potential candidate. 4-5 on the season. He has an air raid attack. And, you know, you look at it, he's 10th in scoring offense in the nation, 39.3 points per game. You can talk about Bigfoot. You can talk about all the great things that he likes to talk about, mascot challenges.
Sure.
He's always so great with the charisma and the press conferences. Just a really interesting guy. But what about it, Alyssa?
Well, so the Mike Leach thing is very interesting for me, knowing someone who personally knows Mike Leach and been talking with them and getting some information. And I know with good authority that he would take this job. If the numbers were right, if they talked to him, he would take this job. And people might see that 4-5 record and be like, well, that's terrible at Washington State. But he's got some things going on. His defensive coordinator quit. A lot of things going on over there at Washington State that he's kind of had to deal with this year. But look at what he was able to do at Texas Tech and really turn that program around. Top 10 for the first time ever for Texas Tech. Then he goes to Washington State, had him ranked 11th in the country last year. You put out products like Cliff Kingsbury at Texas Tech. You put out products like Minshew at Washington State. This is a guy who's going to come here and is a little quirky enough to fit in with what Arkansas is. And Arkansas, and everyone knows, and fans will say this too, it's a unique, different kind of culture, kind of community, and I think Mike Leach can embrace that. And then we were talking about quarterback development too. You know that Mike Leach is going to come in and bring a guy in, if possible, that can run his offense immediately. And people might be saying, well, wait a minute, what about KJ Jefferson? Well, I'm going to tell you what Mike Leach does, because this is what he does. He's going to sit on KJ, and he's going to get him better, and he's going to work on him. And then in a year or two, when KJ's ready, KJ's going to go up and then blow up stats numbers. That's what he does. He has guys in the wings, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, here they come and start putting up crazy numbers. Yeah. That's what Mike Leach does. You go out and you offer Mike Leach $6 million, gives you enough money to still get you a defensive coordinator that Leach is going to be like, do your thing. Like, you're a defensive coordinator, just go do your thing. I got the offense covered. You do what you want. So I'm really excited to see where this Mike Leach information goes. I know some people are hit or miss with him, and I'm pretty sure, Tara, you're looking at some topics or some comments that might say the same. But
it's an interesting batch of comments that we have regarding Mike Leach.
But I think that if you want a guy, and Mike is going to piggyback on me a little bit, who's going to come in here and embrace it and want this job. He's wanted this job multiple times and hasn't gotten it. He's a guy who wants to be here. It could be a really good match if people kind of maybe take the green curtain behind the Wizard a little bit and maybe look at the fact that, like, it could be a good match for Arkansas.
If he wants to be here this badly, I mean, what about that, Mike? You look at him. This guy, less than 2 years ago, I felt good about this guy. I really wanted to potentially see him come in.
They didn't even talk to him. Here's what the average Razorback fan has no idea of. They just kind of have this dim view of him, all this stuff that supposedly happened to Texas Tech, which was all baloney. Maybe some of the things that there's a lot of comments that, well, we don't want some guy making these crazy comments in press conferences. Here's the thing about this guy. He's wanted this job since he was Hal Mummy's offensive coordinator at Kentucky, and they played Arkansas in a really classic game that Arkansas won, and afterward he was just stunned by the crowd, by the stadium, and you'd never been to Razorback Stadium, which is even louder if you're winning. As Alyssa said, he's tried to get this job in the past, and they didn't even talk to him. I think Frank talked to him one time when he was still an assistant coach, and he's basically said, I didn't expect to get that job that time. I wasn't even head coach. Houston got that job. But later on, like this last time, he let it be known that he was interested, and they didn't bother to call him. And let me just explain something to you if you don't get this. You get blown off like that, most people get mad after a while. He still wants this job. Why does he want it? Because he knows this is a place that he would be happy. This is the kind of place where he wins. He's not just this guy that says this funny stuff. Like Alyssa said, at Texas Tech, and I grew up out there, and Tech had all these terrible teams, and every once in a while they'd go to a bowl game. And he came along and for 9 straight years took them to bowl games. And every time they had a great quarterback that left, everyone said, well, that's it. Well, we don't have a quarterback now, and boom, here would come another one, and then another one, and then another one. And I will say this, too. He's Frank-like in a lot of ways. Number one, he's Frank-like in that you can look all over college football these days and see his footprint. You want to know the value of a head coach? Go look at who coached for him and then went on to become head coaches. I think you can look at the last few head coaches we've had. Who do they have out there? Nobody. This guy, he's got a head coach currently at SMU. He's got a head coach currently at Oklahoma. He's got guys all over the place that coached under him and in the NFL. So this air raid stuff has sort of spread out to a lot of places. So that's the number one thing that he's Frank-like in. The other thing that he's Frank-like in is that there's this story that Frank always told that he wanted this job a long time before he got it. And he first decided that when he came up here as an assistant coach at Baylor, and he was at the old Mountain Inn, which now that's a parking lot. But it was a nice building at one time, and you could look out the windows of that building toward the south and see all those mountains. And he said he got in his room the day before the game, and he looked at all the mountains and the city below him. He said he decided to take a walk. And he started walking down the sidewalk, and he saw all these cars with like go hogs and these things with pigtails on the aerials of the cars, the antennas. And he was like, wow, I want to be here. So from that time on, he kept talking to John Barnhill trying to get the job. Well, he didn't. Finally ends up at Missouri for a year, and then he got the job. And one of the first things he said when John Barnhill called him, they said, John Barnhill is on the phone, and he said, Barney, what took you so long? I think that's what Mike Leach will say. What took you so long?
And to interject just a second, too, you got to think about recruiting. And you bring Mike Leach back in, knows the state of Texas knows the Southeast, very good recruiting ties here. And now that he's been in Washington, you can maybe try to pull some of that California, Washington talent.
That's
so
what I was
right here, these two,
we may or may not be a little biased.
You know, he's won more than 50 games at Washington State. And
to
me, he's proven. I mean, that's the thing. You combine that with those recruiting ties that you just mentioned, it's huge. We're talking about, 13 months ago, they hired a guy in Chad Morris who went 14-22 at SMU. Everybody's fired up because he comes in. He's got the ties to Clemson, Dabo Swinney, and obviously fell flat on his face.
Yeah, I think recruiting, like Alyssa mentioned, is probably one of the biggest assets that Mike Leach could bring. Everyone got so excited with Morris and his recruiting, and he showed that he did that well in the state of Texas. And I think that Mike Leach could do the same thing. And also him being able to mold quarterbacks is another big reason why he would be a good fit here. David Burnett says, bring in the Pirate. And I'm gonna join him on that one. I think it'd be a great hire for Arkansas.
Love the nickname.
What's the problem we've had here? Quarterbacks.
Exactly.
It's the number one problem. Some people would say defense. I say that can be fixed a lot quicker than this quarterback situation.
Right.
He's an instant fix for that.
Especially this year, you look at it, and the third name on our list we're going to talk about is Mike Norvell, who is somebody we talked about quite a bit less than 2 years ago, right before Arkansas hired Chad Morris. Mike Norvell out of Memphis, and right now, Memphis Tigers 8th in the nation in scoring offense. Norvell's somebody who has the connections, obviously, to Central Arkansas, to UCA, that is, Alyssa. So what about the fit? We always talk about, I know you talked about it on Twitter with Mike, and it's, hey, do you need an Arkansas guy? We're going to bring up that conversation, that question over and over and over again. But again, this guy does have the ties to UCA.
Sure, he does, and he's doing well at Memphis, and he proves he can win at Memphis, doing really, really well over there. My issue with Mike Norvell is, can you take that risk? Can you go again after hiring Chad Morris out of Conference USA, turn around and do it again and hire another coach out of Conference USA? That's my biggest issue, because the difference with Mike Norvell and Mike Leach is Mike Leach has a lot more tenure at Power 5 schools. Yeah. That's where he's been. That's what he knows. And Mike Norvell does not. Yes, he's winning ball games, and I'm not going to discredit and say he can't do it, but can Arkansas, like Hunter Yurchek said, I have to get this right. I can't afford to get this wrong, is really what he said. And that's even worse. You can't afford to get this wrong, so can you afford to take a risk on Mike Norvell?
Morris came out of the American Athletic Conference at SMU. So you're coming out of the American Athletic Conference. If that's the transition you're making to the SEC, Mike, what about it?
I think he's a much better coach than Morris, and he's a better hire, and probably should have been hired the last time after they blew Leach off. I think he should have been their choice. But here's what happened. You had a bunch of politically correct people sitting around going, oh, no, I think he gambles. I've heard he gambles. Oh, no. And so there were all these rumors that were floating around, and they didn't pick him. And let me tell you something. From what I know about him, that ticked him off.
Sure.
He didn't appreciate those rumors. He's still mad about it. I was an Arkansas guy, and it was UCA, but I was in the state. I wanted this job badly, and you guys didn't pick me because of that stuff. I'm told the only way he ends up here is if he doesn't get 1 or 2 or 3 of other jobs. He's not so burnt, boiling over to come here anymore because he doesn't like the way he was treated.
I completely agree. I mean, you talked about Mike Leach. He's consistently said he wants this job. He wants this job. I don't think that's really the case with Norvell, and I completely understand why. Yeah, I'd be upset too if I got passed up like that.
I would not be surprised if Norvell turns Arkansas down to even just stay at Memphis.
Yeah,
I think it's a good point.
I mean, it's something that could easily happen where he could be like, I'm good.
Thought about that this morning, yeah, certainly. Let's move on because I want to take more and more questions in this Facebook Live. Lane Kiffin. Now, Kiffin, again, a guy who was mentioned right before Arkansas hired Chad Morris, and he's out of Florida Atlantic. We know about Lane and his history, his past, former USC head coach, former Oakland Raiders head coach, former Tennessee head coach, this guy. Will he ever find a permanent home, Melissa? And is he a candidate? Is he somebody that they should take a hard look at?
I think you look at him, and I think you at least, entertain the conversation. I don't think Lane Kiffin's a guy that, like Mike Leach the last time, you just blow off and not talk to. He's had his opportunities and his chances. He coached a little bit at Alabama under Nick Saban for a little bit, doing well at FAU. Does he deserve another opportunity in the SEC, and could this be the right fit? Possibly. But I don't think he's a guy you blow off. I think what he does kind of bring is a little bit of swagger, a little bit of attitude. It's very different from Mike Leach, where Mike Leach is going to bring some quirkiness. I think Lane Kiffin's going to bring a little bit of swagger, a little bit of that Cliff Kingsbury cool guy attitude, which isn't a bad thing. Right. That's just kind of his style.
Yeah.
And I think he excites players too. You got to look at this sometimes from a player's perspective. Some guys like to play for guys like Lane Kiffin. They're relatable. They're those cool guys. They can play for guys like Lane Kiffin. So I don't think you ignore it. I don't necessarily know if I like the fit, but it could be something that happens. I don't think you ignore Lane Kiffin though.
Yeah.
Good fit, Mike.
I look at him as a divorced version of Bobby Petrino, and divorced for a reason. Is it the same thing when you're divorced? No, you can do certain things that we obviously were frowned upon around here with Petrino. So there's that. And when I talked about political correctness, I still think that's going to be an issue when they sit down and look at him. Do we really want a bachelor, a young, good-looking coach who's a bachelor? We want him kind of hanging around on Dixon Street after games. And I don't know that he would go there, but with the whole thing with Bielema supposedly spending a lot of his time down there. There's just some issues there that I think the committee, or not the committee, but the group of people surrounding Hunter Yurachek would look at. I don't know what Hunter himself would do. Supposedly, the story is that Yurachek was about to hire Lane Kiffin at Houston, and the Board of Regents turned him down. So I don't know how that would affect him here. I don't know what the Board of Regents would do. He's good. He's really good. He's also been fired at a couple of places for a reason. And it wasn't just the other thing I talked about. He's kind of up and down and says weird things, and more so than Leach, believe me. So, if he's hired, I think it will generally be looked upon as a young, dynamic coach coming in, and he can probably turn this around, especially offensively, but I'm just not sure that they will hire him. I think he would take the job. I'm not sure in the end they would hire him, but I don't really know.
I feel shaky about this one, Tara.
Yeah.
And for good reason, based on his history and the number of stops he's made. Right. That's probably my primary or at least secondary concern, because I do think Melissa made a good point that this is somebody who brings that swag, and I think players want to play for somebody like that. Especially just kind of the age we're in. I think just with social media and everything, I think there's a lot of factors like that play out because people pay attention to everything. It's hard to find a player out there. It's like I don't really pay attention to social media, whatever. Sure. That's just a note right there. But I want to tell you about Lane Kiffin from the fact that this is a guy just a couple weeks ago, Florida Atlantic, beat Western Kentucky. So I mean, when he arrived there, I think it was sort of like,
Woo.
yeah, it was
They're like,
I didn't
You
try
just
to
jab the bear there.
like throw salt in the wound and just twist that knife. I didn't mean to do that, but just a little note there. But
Ty
It's
Story
just-
wasn't
I mean-
mad at him.
right, that's what I mean. Yeah. Why did I go there anyway? But what do you think, Tara?
I mean, it's like Alyssa brought up. I mean, Hunter Yurachek knows that he's got to make the right hire in this. And I think that Lane Kiffin is just too much of a wild card for Arkansas to be going after right now. I don't think they're in the situation to hire a guy like him, knowing that they can't really control him. They also are just really keen on getting someone who's going to stay here. And he's proven that he doesn't stay places very long. And I just don't think that this would be a good fit for him.
I think it would probably be smart for him to just stay put for a while.
Yeah,
somewhere
probably,
and
honestly.
and really build.
Yeah.
Anyway, my 2 cents. But let's go to the 5th person on this list in terms of the short list we have. But it's just the 5 hot names we're going to address primarily. Sam Pittman,
Dark
and
horse.
we love this guy. Sam Pittman.
Hey.
Had to put him in there.
Yeah, let's go right to Alyssa because Alyssa is calling this guy a dark horse
He
in
is.
this
Yeah.
search for a new head coach at Arkansas. Associate head coach now at Georgia, not just the Georgia line coach, but associate head coach. How much does that play a role? I mean, how much do you think he would jump ship? Mike mentioned the other day that he really does love Arkansas.
Oh, 100% would jump ship if it was right. And Sam is a guy that we covered under the Bielema era who was here for a long time, loved him. He would come into press conference, guys, takes his shoes and socks off and sit down. Now, I don't think he's going to be doing that as a head coach. You can't really sit down at the podium with your shoes and your socks off. But
You never know. He might
could.
do it.
Easily some fireside chats with Sam Pittman. But he's a guy who loved being here. Him and his wife loved being here. They've got a house here in Arkansas. This is a place they love. He's getting a lot of support from former Arkansas players, especially the O-line that he coached. And you got to remember, when Sam Pittman was here, that's when the offensive line was stout.
Yep.
You might have forgotten what that was like, but at first they had Travis Swanson, and then you've got Dan Skipper and Denver Kirkland and Frank Ragnow and Sebastian Trottola. Sam Pittman's responsible for all of those dudes. So, can he come in here, first-time head coach? That's why he's a dark horse. Do you risk a first-time head coach on this hire? But if it's Sam Pittman, and Pittman can build himself a good staff, you're going to get a lot of support, especially from a lot of former players, and you're going to start building in that offensive line that he's been able to do at Georgia, that he did at Tennessee, that he did here while he was at Arkansas, and that's where this gets started. I couldn't tell you how many times I've talked to DJ Williams, and we've talked to DJ Williams, and it's like, what is going on? And he goes, it's the O-line and the D-line. Like, bottom line, I don't care how fast you are, how good you are at skill positions. If you can't keep your QB upright or keep any play from developing, you're not going to win ball games. And Sam Pittman can easily come in here and change that.
Yeah, I think it just is right there, what you said, the trenches. I mean, this guy's radar, everything, his antenna is always looking right there. And that's what it's all about in the SEC, and particularly in the SEC when you look at the defensive lines.
Yeah.
I mean, Brett Bielema pointed that. He always made a great point. He's a defensive line guy. He always pointed that when he was here. You know, that is the difference between the SEC and so many leagues, is the difference in D-line play. Well, when you're an O-line coach like Sam Pittman and you can game plan to go against really good D-lines and to have the background he has coaching the O-line. But, Mike, when you look at this, obviously he has some head coaching experience, but not at a high level. What would you say in terms of that type of scenario where he would be the supervisor, the guy in charge of everybody and not just in charge of a position group?
I think there are guys, I mean, every head coach at one time was not a head coach. Now, most of them have been coordinators, and he's not a coordinator, so that would be maybe a mark against him. He's my number 2 choice behind Leach, and for a lot of reasons. And I do believe he would succeed. For the same reason that I told people years ago, they should have hired, they're just guys that are made to be head coaches that never got a shot, you know. And there's a bunch of them out there, and they usually get passed up. And you're sitting there thinking, that's a guy that would have been a great head coach if somebody had ever taken a chance on him. Sam Pittman would do that. First of all, he can recruit. And secondly, the biggest problem with this team beyond quarterbacks, in my opinion, is the players weren't unified behind the coach, the head coach. That wouldn't be an issue with him. They love this guy. He's a player's coach, but he's tough. He's just got all those qualities. I think the media would like this guy, and here's another guy that would come in here and be all about Arkansas. So he pushes.
What him and Mike Leach have in common.
Yeah, he pushes that button. I don't know what they'll do about this. I'm sure that Hunter Yurachek is very much aware of the fact that all these former players want him. Now, I don't know whether they've lobbied current players and convinced them, the guys that had never been under him. But I know that enough about this to think they will consider him. I think they'll talk to him. And it's this whole thing of whether or not you look at this guy and say, man, can he make the transition to head coach? Ultimately, I don't think it will be him for the same reason that we've talked about before with some of these other people, because I don't think you can take a risk. If he had a proven track record as a head coach, it'd be a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But this is a guy you would hire when your program was better off and you were winning and you lost a guy because he got picked up by somebody else and you're going, we're already good in shape. This guy's not going to take us down. I can take it. But now when you're just so desperate to win, I just think you're really opening yourself up to hire a guy that doesn't have a proven track record as a head coach. But I'd hire him. I'd roll the dice. Point. Go ahead and fire him if it doesn't work.
Yeah. That ultimately might be the difference, though, like you mentioned.
I mean, I'm with Mike on this one. I hadn't even thought about that really until now, because when I was thinking of Pittman, I wasn't here for that time when he was at Arkansas, but I did meet him once, and his energetic self is so fun to be around, and I can completely understand why guys would want to play for him. And also being that, you know, his work with the O-line would really help Arkansas. Besides the quarterback situation, I think the O-line is at least at the same level in need right now. So it would be a good hire behind Leach. I'm with you on that one.
You've had spotty guys. I mean, obviously, when I say spotty, I mean collectively Arkansas has not had a good O-line, like Alyssa mentioned, since 2015. But obviously, when I say spotty, I mean you had a first-round pick in Frank Ragnow. Thereafter, and the other Froholt
but you
was
couldn't build around him.
Fourth-round pick of the Patriots this past draft.
He's also told some friends of his in Arkansas that if he got that job, he would bring 5 to 6 4- and 5-star offensive linemen with him, recruits that are currently kind of committed to they're committed to him, not Georgia.
Yeah.
Hey, Kirby Smart said he'd be an incredible coach, so there you go.
Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm in.
Sam, come on.
I just love him. He's so great.
Some other options. We'll just put these names out there. Hugh Freeze, Liberty, 6 wins on the season for Hugh in his first year there. Matt Campbell is a guy I really like. I think is going to be in this game for a long time. He played football at Mount Union, doesn't have the Arkansas ties, but he's coaching at Iowa State right now. He's making $3.5 million per season. Iowa State is 5-4, but each of the past 2 seasons they won 8 games. Otis Kirk has more on that on hogville.net, and I just think maybe it's somebody you do at least call and just see, maybe at least talk to him.
Yeah.
Chris Kleiman, Kansas State, he's making $2.3 million. First season at Kansas State, they're 6-3. They have some good wins clearly, and I like Kleiman. Obviously, maybe at this point it might be a little too soon, but who knows? Elia Drinkwitz is somebody that Mike and I talked about the other day. App State is 8-1 on the season, only lost to Georgia Southern. The thing with Drinkwitz is that he went to Arkansas Tech, and then Bill Napier from Louisiana. Well, they're 11th in scoring offense in the country, 11th in scoring defense. So Napier doing a lot of good things there. But we're, again, talking about a conference that's not on the level of the SEC. So anybody jump out there, Alyssa?
Well, you know, obviously Hugh Freeze is a guy that everyone wants to kind of circle because he has SEC experience at Ole Miss. And guess what? There's only a handful of coaches who have beat Nick Saban, and his is on that list. So he could come in here and maybe say, look, I know how to beat Alabama. Let's do it at Arkansas. So that's kind of interesting. I also really like Matt Campbell at Iowa State, those 2 guys. I think that those are guys that you can take risk. And this is a question that I kind of want to pose to everybody is, how hard is it for Arkansas now, 2 years removed, to get the coaching search right now because they can't afford to get it wrong? Like, how much of a bind have they put themselves in hindsight, now that you have to say, I can't get it wrong? So your margin of error is non-existent, and you can't take gambles. So what if you pass up on a guy that could have been good, that could have been great, but you couldn't because at the time it was a risk? And that's what's scary for me as we go through this process of, do they play it safe and get it wrong?
Yeah.
Because they think that they're playing it safe.
You know, Hugh Freeze, I've been around Razorback fans a lot of years, and I know a lot of them. There's kind of a split here. There are people that say we have to cheat to win. Everybody else is cheating. I mean, you talk to people about LSU right now, whether it's true or not, the big belief is the reason they're as good as they are right now is because Coach O cheats. He knows how to do it. And I'm not saying he does. I'm saying fans tell me this. So the idea is, hey, here's a cheating guy at Ole Miss. Now, he was never directly tied to the thing that put them on probation, but I know there were rumors all during the time he was there of wild things going on. And we were at a basketball game. Now, Ole Miss has this thing that people say Arkansas needs. They've got an on-campus hotel. And the great thing about an on-campus hotel is you can bring a recruit in with his parents, and they can stay at that hotel, and you can feed them. You can do all this stuff. Plus, they're right there on campus. Well, Ole Miss has that. So we're in there one night before a basketball game, and Mike Anderson's going to come over and meet us in this lobby of this hotel. So we have this long wait before he gets here. That's a recruiting weekend. We're sitting there watching these coaches as these recruits come in. And you just were thinking, whoa, man, there's some stuff going on here. Because they'd be getting over in the corner and talking and there'd be stuff.
So
and
secretive.
I'm thinking, oh, man, this is Hugh Freeze at work. Now, I don't know if any of that's true. That you just felt that vibe.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is this whole tied to the allegations or not, he was at that school when this happened, and he did get fired. He apparently got fired because they said he on his cell phone, which he ought to be smart enough. Any coach these days ought to have his own cell phone, not a university-issued cell phone. But they could. Houston Nutt's lawyer, FOI'd the cell phone, and they found a call to an escort service. Now, Hugh Freeze claimed it was a misdial, and nobody ever proved anything. So you've got all of that on one side, and maybe some people that say we don't want the cheater, and then you've got the other guys that say, oh, we want the cheater, and he beat Alabama, and so it's really good. So this is one of these things where some are going to like him, some aren't going to like him, and then what you have to ask yourself is, what does Hunter Yurachek think about that? And I don't have a clue.
Yeah.
I do think he's an SEC coach that has won games and has beat Alabama, and that's a plus.
Yeah. Tara, any of those names jump out? I mean, I said that thing about Campbell, just he's worth a phone call just because, again, people may recognize, obviously, he was at Toledo when Toledo beat Arkansas in 2015, but he's had success there in the Big 12. Would it translate over as head coach as Arkansas's moving forward here, trying to replace Morris? What do you think?
I don't think Arkansas is in the position to really write anyone off right now. I think they need to put as many feelers out as they can, but at the same time, I'm not really a big fan of anyone on that list that we put up. I think Chris Kleiman is pretty decent in what you look at what he's done so far this year. I mean, he almost beat Texas. He beat OU, TCU, Mississippi State, Kansas. So those are all big wins for them. But I don't know if that would translate. Exactly, it's 1 year. It's way too soon.
He's got one of the highest winning percentages of any college coach ever, but almost all of it is in Division II, 3, or whatever.
It's Division I AA. They've beaten James Madison a couple times.
Division III, if we go logical, instead of the NCAA's politically correct. We can't call that Division III. That's demeaning.
I want to get back to Alyssa's question. We got a couple more minutes, but I want to take some questions, comments. What do you got?
We do have some questions. I'm just going to throw some of the names out there that I've seen so far. Houston Nutt has popped up on this Facebook. A bunch. So
y'all gotta let that go.
Yeah, I think.
I just look at it. It's not personal. It's not. But I think that you cannot continue to live in the past, y'all. You've got to let it go. It was good while it lasted, but y'all are gonna. That grass ain't always greener on the other side.
Retweet.
It's really fun to look back and say, oh, he did such great things here. But y'all got to look for the future and look ahead right now. Don't go backwards.
You still have that split that I talked about with Malzahn. You have people that like him, people that like Malzahn, people don't like the other one. And so you'd be coming in still dealing with that split. And also, he isn't coached in a long, long time. What staff would he put together? All of his coaches, I think, are either out of it or gone on to other places. So that would be difficult. He does check the box about wanting the job, and he does check the box about being all about Arkansas. So those are two strong things. I just think there are other things that if they really start looking into this, they probably would realize. I told somebody this today. I think I even put it on Twitter because I'm reading all this stuff, and there's nobody that's kind of universal. It's really not. Oh, okay, maybe it's. I want this guy. I don't want that guy. No, I don't like that guy. It's really split right now. And so whoever gets this job, even if they have no previous, you don't know a lot about them. I think because people are mad, because they're mad about that Chad Morris coming in, left lane, hammer down. Here's what we're facing. All of us are facing this. Okay, in a few weeks, they're going to hire a guy. You know what we're going to be dealing with after that? 9 months of the talking season. And that's all we've got is talk. You'll be able to go down there and do spring football a little bit. But you know what the temptation is? You might go down there as a reporter and something looks good in the spring. And you go, boy, this is really good. And we start talking about how good this guy is. And you know what they're going to be doing? They're going to be, you told us this about Morris. We don't want to hear that. So whoever gets this job, there's going to be a split, and people are not going to be happy until the season starts and he starts winning games. They don't want the talking season.
No,
that's just shut up.
You know, here's
well, we
the
got
thing.
two. Oh, there's so much.
Yeah,
so much time.
You don't want to overthink it, but you mentioned time, and that's what I want to get to because Mike kind of alluded to it, and that is just make sure you get this right. And so utilize the time and don't get so caught up in early signing period is coming. I think Otis made the point in that article that we really need to think about, okay, yeah, you got that looking at you, the early signing period, but just be very diligent, get it right. And when I mean be very diligent, I don't mean just about the head coach. I mean, who's your defensive coordinator going to be? What's it going to look like stylistically? And I think those are all things we need to consider because Chad Morris went 4-18.
We also have a couple of comments about Urban Meyer.
No, stop it.
Everyone
Y'all
got
gonna make me mad.
Everyone got so excited when he was talking to, at the Little Rock Touchdown Club and said that Arkansas is a championship program and all this other great stuff.
He won't take the job. So that solves that problem. If he would I be mad? No, she would. I wouldn't. I'd be sort of okay with it. Because here's the thing, he didn't murder anybody.
No, he
didn't
did
kill
not.
her.
But there could be people that could be alive if he'd actually spoke up. But he's also just not a good human.
And he wasn't responsible for that stupid coach that he had that did whatever he did. That
but
guy
you cover it up. I'm not getting an argument with you, man. We're going to go back and forth. Stop.
Last question we'll get to real quick. People want to know when a coach will be named. Obviously, we don't have a set date or anything, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to be after Arkansas' season.
Different timeline this time around because obviously after the Missouri game, the last game of the regular season 2017, Brett Bielema was fired right as he walked off the field.
If they have a quick candidate, somebody they really like, and maybe they've done some. Right now, all you can do is talk to an agent. You're not going to be talking to the coach himself. So that starts in a little over 2 weeks. So then that starts. Now, you have about a week after that, maybe it's 2 weeks, I'd have to look, before that New York Heisman stuff all happens, all those college football awards. Now what happens that week is all these coaches, it's like a mini coaching convention, and they all go up to New York. And ADs love this. Why? Because you don't have to bring the guy on your campus with cameras snooping around and everybody trying to figure out. You just go to the guy's room, look down the hallway, don't see anybody, ring the doorbell or knock on it or whatever, and boom, you're in the room. You can negotiate with the guy all you want. Nobody knows it happened.
I will point out, though, I would like to make it known, Florida State, when Jimbo Fisher left, he left before the season was over. They still had one more game to try to be bowl eligible and then a bowl game, and Texas A&M took him before the final week of the year. Just going to point that out there.
So
you can do it. What I'm saying is you can poke somebody if you really want to.
The point is that's the way Brett Bielema was hired, and here's how I know that. Because we were under all kinds of pressure, and that was an 8-month period where we were told Jeff Long has his guy. It's just we just have to wait till the season over. So you're going crazy. You're calling around, who is this guy? And everybody was speculating, it's Les Miles. It's I'm 40 and I'm a man boy over at Florida State. It's all these guys. And so we don't know, but I have a really good source that told me this. He said, whoever it is, Jeff Long hasn't told anybody, even the closest. His wife doesn't know. The only thing he said is the name has never been mentioned. So I always had that in my head. So I had a guy that was able to track the Stevens plane, and he called me that morning, and he said that the Heisman stuff started. He said, Jeff Long is in New York City because that plane is in Teterboro. And that's where private planes land when they go into New York City. They land in New Jersey. His plane is there. So it's there for a couple of days, and then he calls me up that morning, the morning that this all happened, and he said, hey, that plane has just left, and it ain't coming to Fayetteville. It's coming to Madison. I went, Madison, Madison, Madison. And I looked, Bielema, and I told Jason Carroll, I said, that name has never been mentioned.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, we just can't. We can't go on that. And I said, we got to go with it. And at that time, another station was saying it was, you know, I'm a man boy over at Oklahoma State. And
Mike Gundy.
And I was like, come on, we got it. And then we found out later on from an ESPN source that was it. But we just sat there, and then there was the Yahoo Sports that broke it, and I'm just, no. It's one of those moments where you get really frustrated.
All right, Tara.
Mike is reliving things.
If you're Yurachek, who are you calling?
Oh, I'm calling Mike Leach.
Who you calling?
Like, first off.
I think you call Leach, yeah.
Who you calling?
I think he has.
I'm calling Leach. Let's call Leach.
Okay. I think we got to wrap this thing up.
We're going to close right there.
That's it.
We've only been talking
so
for
many
like
things
45
we can
minutes.
get to. Anyway, Arkansas set for LSU a week from Saturday. They're in the bye week. This week, Arkansas is 2-8 on the season. Sorry to remind you all about that. But anyway, we are closing this Arkansas Coaches Hot Board. Otis Kirk did a great job writing an article just kind of looking at candidates and what is out there in terms of the pool right now. So keep following Otis's work there on hogville.net. We'll see you.
For watching this Pig Trail Nation report.